Welcome to 18th Century Cooking. I'm John Townsend, and today we're making Frumenty. Frumenty is a very interesting dish that has its origins in the late medieval period, and you see it being used all the way up into the 18th century, but there it seems to die out in popularity. It's a very interesting dish which is basically wheat boiled in milk. That's what you get for a dictionary definition. The 18th century Frumenty recipes call for the wheat to be basically pre-prepared into a certain kind of consistency. So we are going to start off with wheat berries and prepare them for Frumenty. The directions for preparing this wheat mixture for Frumenty come from John Houghton's recipe in about 1695 or so. And also William Ellis talks about a couple of methods for preparing this in about 1750. But they're rare descriptions. Most of the cookbooks expect that you are working with a pre-prepared wheat that you buy in the marketplace that's already ready to go. So the first thing we're doing in this particular method is taking our dry wheat berries. These are just regular white wheat berries, and taking them in a mortar and pestle, adding a little bit of water, and grinding them around. You can do it like this, or William Ellis actually talks about taking these same wheat berries, just like this, with a little bit of water, putting them in a linen bag and pounding them with, say, like a rolling pin. What we're trying to do here is not to break up the berries, but actually to separate the berries from the bran husk that's around the outside of the grain. And as we do this too, the wheat berries will start to absorb some of the water. You may find putting these berries in a bag and pounding them works a little bit better, but again, the idea here is we're trying to strip off that outer layer. The next step is to take this bowl of wheat berries and to rinse it with a whole lot of water. What we're trying to do is to now wash away those husks that we've broken off. It will probably take several rinses of water to get all of these husks off. And if it doesn't feel like you've really gotten it all off, take it out, dry it a little bit, and pound it in that bag to get these husks to really come off. You can tell whether you're really getting there by looking at these soaked berries, and you can tell that there are ones that are very blonde, and then there are the darker ones. Those darker ones still have that bran layer on them. That's what we're really trying to strip off here. Now that we've got our berries rinsed off and drained, it's time to put them in a pan, and let's cover them over with, say, 1 inch or 2 of water and set them on to boil. So you want to boil this like this for an hour or two and reduce that water all the way down to where you basically can't see it in this. Once the water's disappeared from the top layer, you'll probably want to stop. It'll take an hour, maybe 2, depending on how much water you put in. Another one of the instructions calls for this to actually be placed in a pitcher. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that, but in a pitcher and placed into the oven and baked along with your bread. And that was the instruction that William Ellis gave. Okay, so here is our pre-boiled wheat, and you can see that the grains have puffed up. They're much bigger than where they started off as the original dry wheat berry, and they've gotten much, much softer. You can tell they just will kind of smash with your finger now instead of being rock hard like the original berries were. These are ready to go and to be used in our Frumenty recipe. Now, this Frumenty recipe is from the London and Country Cook, 1749, written by Charles Cook. It's a fairly simple recipe, and it starts off with 1 quart of milk. And to this, we're going to add 16 ounces of our pre-prepared wheat, along with a couple of ounces of raisins. Now we're going to set this on to boil. Now we're boiling milk here, so we're going to have to be careful. Make sure it's on a low fire and keep it stirring. Let it simmer 10 or 15 minutes and then take it off the fire. Now it's time to temper our eggs. The recipe calls for 2 egg yolks beaten, and now we take a little bit of our hot broth and we're going to add that to our eggs and whisk it in. If we just dumped our egg yolks in, it would cook the eggs. So we need to temper them. We need to bring them up to temperature. Okay, I think our eggs are tempered. They're feeling like they've warmed up enough that I can go ahead and mix them into this full pot here. Now, William Ellis mentions a less expensive version of this same thing. Instead of using egg yolks to thicken it, we can thicken it with regular wheat flour. And even sometimes in the recipes where it calls for the egg yolks, you can get additional thickening by adding regular flour to it. Now that we've added the eggs, we can set this back over a low fire, keep it stirring until it thickens. It's thickened up nicely. I've kept stirring it so it hasn't burnt. Now we can pour it into our bowls and let it cool just a little bit for being ready to serve. Now Charles Cook has two little finish up points on this. He says to add a little bit of nutmeg, and he says a little sugar to taste. So that's up to you how much sugar you'd like. Well, let's give this a quick try. I've got my horn spoon here. A lot of people ask whether this is a plastic spoon. This is actually a horn spoon, very common in the 18th century. That's wonderful. Those raisins and that really interesting wheat texture that's in there, it's an amazing little flavor. And of course, nutmeg, got to have the nutmeg. Really, really interesting dish. You've got to try this one. If you